Hare Krishna. So we will start with Bhagavad-gita, chapter 2, which is titled Contents of the Gita Summarized. So this is actually considered to be one of the most important chapters of the Bhagavad-gita because it gives a summary of the entire Gita. In fact, Srila Prabhupada notes that by the end of the second chapter, Krishna has spoken all that he has to speak. The Bhagavad Gita ends at the end of the second chapter, but the reason that he speaks 16 more chapters is to clarify Arjun's doubts about what he has spoken. So the remaining chapters are essentially expansions of the verses that are there in the 16th chapter, in the second chapter. So it's a chapter that is fairly long, the second longest chapter in the Gita with 72 verses. The 18th chapter is the longest with the 78 verses. And in addition to that, it's kind of divided into discrete parts that covers the various sections of the Gita. So the chapter kind of begins with a continuation of the first chapter, which is setting of the scene. In the first chapter, Arjun presents his reasons why he should not fight. He presents 4 reasons, and he kind of ends in a mood of uncertainty. So he lets go of his bow, he sits down in despair. And the first 11 verses are more or less continuation of the first chapter, wherein the 5th reason for Arjun's not wanting to fight, which is he doesn't know, right? Indecisiveness, is expanded on more. And then verses 12 to 30 are essentially the Gyan section, the Sankhya, that talk about the nature of the soul and how it is related to the body. Then the following 8 verses are about karma, the glories of performing the prescribed duties. Then following it from verse 39 to 53, Krishna speaks about Nishkam Karma Yoga, his favorite topic. And you can see by the number of verses that he allocates to it and the number of chapters that he will allocate to it, that acting on the platform of detachment. This is one of the themes that will recur throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna glorifies it in a different way. And later on we'll see that how Prabhupada will reveal that the real platform of executing Nishkam Karma or acting with detachment is from the platform of Bhakti. And that is why this is Krishna's favorite and Prabhupada's favorite. Then 54 to 72 is Sthita, description of Sthita Pragya, which is again an extension of Nishkam Karma. So 39 to 53 is describing Nishkam Karma, and 54 to 72 is describing a person who is practicing Nishkam Karma. Okay, so let's start with the first verse of the second chapter. So 2.1, Sanjay Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripyavishtham Ashru Purna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana. Sanjay said, seeing Arjun full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudan, Krishna, spoke the following words. So, when Dhritarashtra saw that Arjun had given up his resolve to fight, he was ecstatic. Because really speaking, Arjun was one of the main obstacles in the path of the victory of the Kauravas. So, Sanjay at this time, he brings forth he brings his attention to Krishna. Right? So, he addresses Krishna as Madhusudan, right? And Madhusudan, one of the meanings of Madhusudan is the killer of Madhu demon. So Sanjay is tacitly conveying that just like Krishna is famous for the killer of demons, and one can understand that doubts and misgivings are like demons. So we can also be sure that Krishna will kill these demons of doubts in Arjun so that he is resolved to doing his duty. Baldev Buddhibhushan says that another meaning of Madhusudan, Madhu means honey, sweetness, and Sudan means destroy, which means that Krishna with his sweetness will destroy the lamentation of Arjun. Right? So Arjun has so far given many substantive arguments for not fighting, all based on the scriptures. Yet they haven't solved his dilemma. If Arjun was convinced that not fighting was the right thing to do, he should have simply left the battlefield. But he is paralyzed with indecisiveness. He sits on the chariot, he neither leaves the battlefield nor does he fight. So this is an important point also, that the knowledge of the scriptures is insufficient to guide completely. Just like somebody may get all the books for medicine, but reading that, the person doesn't become a doctor. The person needs to go through a process of training, being guided under somebody who is qualified, who has practiced, and then the person becomes qualified to practice. So similarly, scriptures are just they're rules and regulations. But one needs to understand their implementation, their application under the guidance of somebody who is experienced. So Arjun may have all the knowledge of the scriptures that he has quoted to Krishna, but yet he is waiting to get guidance from Krishna. This talks about the importance of having a living spiritual master or a living guru. Okay, let's do the next verse. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva idam Vishame Samapastitam Anarya Justam Asvargyam Akirti Karamarjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjun, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy." So, this is the first time that Krishna speaks in the first person, right? He's been referred to in the previous chapter, but this is the first time when Krishna speaks, and it is noted Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Right? So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he gives 4 references to show how the scriptures unequivocally establish the position of Krishna as Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is actually one of the most quoted verses in the Bhagavad-gita by Srila Prabhupada. He quotes it 384 times across various lectures. So, Prabhupada, the first quote he gives is from Bhagavatam 1 to 11. Vadanti tattva tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam prameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdayate. Right? So, the absolute truth is realized in three phases of understanding, which is Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And each of these verses have purports that can run into several days of discussions, and Prabhupada gives a synopsis that God can be perceived as the impersonal energy, Brahman, as the localized Paramatma sitting in the heart of every living entity, and as the supreme person, Bhagavan. So here the reference is to Bhagavan, or the personal aspect of Krishna. The word Bhagavan is analyzed by Parashar Muni in Vishnu Puran as Aishwarya Samagrasya Virasya Yasha Sriya Jnanavera Gyascheva Saditi Bhagam Gana. That Bhagavan is a person who has 6 opulence in entirety. That he has all the riches, all the strength, all the fame, all the beauty, all the knowledge, and all the renunciation. Right? So there may be people who are rich, but they may lack other things. But Krishna is the richest. He is the strongest. He is the most famous, the most beautiful. He has complete knowledge, and despite having all this, he is completely renounced. Right? And then Prabhupada quotes from Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitanand Vigranadi Radhir Govinda Sarva Karan Karan. Right? So this is talking about the relationship of Krishna with respect to others. So Ishvara literally means controller. So Krishna is the supreme controller. Sachidanand Vigraha. Vigraha means that he has a form. And what is the form composed of? Sat, Chit and Anand. So Sat means eternity, Chit means knowledge, and Anand means bliss. So he is a form that is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Anadir Adir. That there is no beginning to him and there is no end to him. And Sarvakaran Karanam. That he is the cause of all causes. So if you go through the cause and effect chain, then all the cause and effect chains, they end in Krishna. And then the fourth verse Prabhupada quotes is again from Bhagavatam. Etecham sakala pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indra divyakulam lokam mridhyante yuge yuge. So we had seen that how there are many incarnations of Krishna. Like Krishna appears as Lord Vishnu, he appears as Lord Ram, as Narsingadev, many incarnations. But Etechayamsa Kala Pumsha, that all these are expansions of Krishna. And who is Krishna? Krishna is Tu Bhagavan Swayam. The Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gives protection to Indra and everyone else, yuge yuge, time after time. So 4 succinct but very potent verses that are quoted to establish the position of Krishna as Swayam Bhagavan, as the personality of Godhead. So what is Krishna saying over here? He is saying that kutastva kashmalam idam. Kashmalam means impurities. That where have these impurities come upon you? Right? So kashmalam is used in a derogatory sense. But Krishna at this point is talking in the mood of a friend, because Arjuna has still not accepted Krishna as the Guru. So between friends, these kind of talks are accepted. Right? So Krishna is saying, where have these kashmalam, where have these impurities come upon you? Vishame, at this time, when the battle is about to begin. Right? And why? Because he says that these kind of impurities will akirtim karam Arjuna. That these will result in in infamy. Kirti means fame, infamy, akirti means will result in your reputation being spoiled. And anarya justam asvargam, that such people, Swarg is heavenly planets, Aswarg is hellish planets. That such people are destined to go to the hellish planets. So there's a little bit of a Krishna speaking again in the mood of a guru, also chastising Arjun as his friend. So this is the first important point regarding dharma made in the Bhagavad-gita by Krishna, that what you should do should not be based on your whims. It should be based on your duty. Right? Because Arjun may say, I have given you so many reasons. Why are you still asking that where have these come from? This is where they have come from. But the fact Krishna is still saying where have they come from, because he's saying these are not your duty. Your prescribed duty as a Kshatriya is to engage in battle for the protection of dharma. So first important point that is made implicitly, that will be made explicitly. And connected to the fact that one is surrendering to the instructions of the scriptures is the understanding that one is acting based not on the impulses of the body and the senses, but one is based on a spiritual platform. Okay, let's go to the next verse, verse 3. Klebhyam asmagama partha naitatvae upabdayate shrudram hridaya dorvalyam tyaktaviteshtha parantapa. O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading importance. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of enemy. So in response to the previous comment by Krishna, Arjun might say that it's not Hridaya Dorbalyam, it's not the weakness of heart, but it is my fear of committing sin that is stopping me from fighting. So in this verse, Krishna, we see he addresses Arjun by two names. He says Klebhyam asma gama partha. So partha is Pritha, and Krishna is indicating to Arjun that belonging to an exalted family, you should be aware of the importance of doing your duty. And in the last line, he says Taktavishta Parantapa. So Parantapa means chastiser of enemy. And so this is Krishna being a little sarcastic, saying that you're famous. Arjun was a famous warrior. So you're famous for inflicting pain on your enemy. And here you are acting in a cowardly way. Right? Because he says, Klaibyam asmagama partha. So Klaibyam means cowardly. Right? It means impotent, cowardly, right? So in Kshatriyas, there was a lot of valor and they were very quick to fight with one another. So calling a Kshatriya Klaibyam, impotent or coward, were fighting words. Arjun later on in the battle, at one point, Yudhishthir, he addresses Arjun in this way, saying you're a coward. When Arjun, some backstory, but Yudhishthir is upset at Arjun. He says you're a coward, and Arjun immediately gets ready to kill Yudhishthir, his own brother. So such was the valor in Kshatriyas. But here we see Krishna is saying this and getting away with it. It reflects on the state of dejection and desperation of Arjun. Also reflects on the nature of the relationship. Right? So Krishna says, why are you acting in such a cowardly way? He says, Shrudram Hidaya Dorbalyam. So, Shudra, of course, we know is one of the Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Literally, Shudra means one who does not know. Right? And the understanding is Shudra is the one who does not know the principles of the Vedas. So they wait for others to tell them. And that's why the Shudras are always in the mode of being under the guidance of somebody else, because they themselves do not know. Another meaning of Shudra is one who laments unnecessarily. Right? And both the meanings are relevant over here. So he's saying that Krishna is saying, Arjun, you're a Shudra, Shudram Hridaya Dorbalyam, because you do not know what the word of the scriptures is. And Arjun is fully dejected, and Krishna is saying Shudram also, in the sense that you are lamenting unnecessarily. And of course Krishna will expand on this. Now, based on this, one might think that Krishna is condemning Arjun's position of compassion. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna is condemning false compassion. Like a Vaishnava does not become bewildered when one suffers, since it's the nature of the material world. But the Vaishnava does lament when the soul, out of ignorance of its own constitutional position, is suffering. That's why Vaishnava is called Paradukha Dukhi. That is one who laments for the ignorance of others, and Parasukh Sukhi, one who is happy when the other person is making spiritual advancement. Right? So we see in these two verses, Krishna is very strongly condemning the position of Arjun in terms of his lamentation. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Okay, 2.4. Arjun vacha katham bhishmam sankhe dronam cha madhusudana ishubi parityotyami pujara varisudana. Arjun said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship? And so this is Arjun's response to the criticism of Krishna. Krishna is saying it's your duty to fight. Right? Don't be an Aryam. Right? He says Arya is literally Arya means one who knows. And Anarya is, Krishna is saying, you're acting as one who does not know. Right? And then he calls him by different derogatory words. So Arjun is again taking the shelter of scriptures. Right? He's saying that men like Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma is an elder in my family. He is my grandfather. Drona is my guru. As per the scriptures, I should not even attack them with joking words. In fact, contrary to that, I should be worshipping them. Puja Rav. He's saying they're actually worthy of my worship. And then Krishna might say, that's all fine. But they're standing in the battlefield ready to fight you. Does not that change the situation? Right? And Arjun says, no. Because as per the scriptures, such personalities, even if they come to harm you, should still be dealt with respect. So we see that Arjun addresses Krishna as Madhusudan, and then later on he addresses him as Arisudan. Right? So this is known as Punarukti. Punarukti is repetition. He repeats Krishna's name twice. Like he says that Dronam cha Madhusudana, and then is Puja Rav Arisudana. And Acharya says it reflects the confusion in the mind of Arjun. That when one is bewildered, then one tends to speak things that are more a reflection of one's confusion in the mind. So he says Madhusudan, Arisudan. And there is also an explanation of the words. Madhusudan is killer of the Madhu demon. Arisudan means killer of the enemies. So Arjuna is essentially saying to Krishna that you are famous as the killer of demons. You are Madhusudan because you killed the famous demon called Madhu. You are Arisudan because you are famous as killing your enemies. But you are not famous for killing your father or your guru. You are not famous for killing Sandipani Muni or for killing Vasudev or Nand Baba. In fact, you go out of your way to protect them. So how can I do some things? How can you ask me to do something that you yourself never do? You are famous for attacking only enemies. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. Guruna tva hi mahanubhavan shreya bhoktam bhekshamapi haloke hatvartha kamam stu guruni heva Vunjya bhogan rudir pradigdan. It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. So Arjuna continues to reinforce the reasons why he should not kill. Right? So we see this verse packs many things. Right? So Arjuna says it would be better to live in this world by begging. So this is in response to Krishna's potential ask that you're a Kshatriya, you're a prince, your way of supporting yourself is by ruling. And if you run away from this battlefield, how will you support yourselves? And Arjuna says by begging. So begging is considered to be the most fallen of profession, but Arjuna is taking the higher ground over here, saying that I will even stoop down to the level of begging rather than Guru no hatvahi mahanu bhavam. Right? He glorifies them twice. That Guru means they are my teachers, my superiors, and mahanu bhavam, that they are great souls. Because Krishna might say that these are people who, despite their position, are now standing over here ready to fight for the evil-minded Duryodhana. And Arjuna says, does not matter. They are my superiors and they are great souls. So even if great souls and superiors commit a mistake, it is the duty of the one who is younger and inferior to continue to pay respect to them rather than taking out a sword and killing them. So Arjuna is taking the higher ground over here. Srila Prabhupada makes the point that a person should be evaluated based on his conduct and not his position. So Drona was a Brahman and a great teacher, but he had accepted financial assistance from Duryodhana. Right? Drona was poor, and when he was employed by Duryodhana, he became very opulent. But he was well aware that the Kauravas were sinful in nature. So as a Brahman, he should have refused to accept financial assistance from somebody who is sinful. So that contaminated the greatness of Drona. Similarly, Bhishma, he had remained quiet at the time when Draupadi was being disrobed. So that is not the position of a respectable elder. So by their actions, they had lost the respect, the deference, and the glory of being gurus and exalted personalities. And in the scriptures, we see precedents. Right? We see Bali Maharaj rejecting his guru Shukracharya when Shukracharya was advising him against giving charity to Vamandev. We see Prahlad Maharaj glorifying Lord Nrsimhadev for killing his father, Hiranyakashipu. The father is considered to be the first guru. So, just being anchored to a position does not automatically give the person the privileges of that position. The person needs to have the qualifications for being in that position. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. Verse 2.6. Na chetad vidma katrannu gariyo yadva jayema yadivan jayeyu yanev hatva na jivishamas teva sthita pramukhyadartarashtra. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So this is essentially a summation of the root cause of Arjun's anguish. He says, nor do we know which is better. Indecisiveness. So Arjuna has presented so many reasons for not fighting. And he has not been speaking whimsically. He has been speaking on the authority of the scriptures. But he is himself not convinced. He is trying to convince Krishna, but now he says, nor do we know. That even I do not know what should we do. We have two options. That we either conquer them or we conquered them. Right? So, if we allow them to conquer us, then he says we should not care to live. Why? Because we will be contaminated with the sins of killing the elders and the gurus. And then yet they are now standing before us, meaning that we have to make a choice. That whether we conquer them or whether we are conquered by them. So the Acharya says that these sets of verses, superficially they might be showing Arjun's bewilderment, but they are also showing his qualifications. So earlier on in the first chapter, verse 32, Arjuna had shown strong control of senses and mind. When he said, what is the use of a kingdom? What is the use of enjoyment and what is the use of living? Right? So he is not thinking that I will enjoy a large kingdom and live opulently, but it's the statement that is made by one who is not very anxious to simply enjoy the senses, the quality of sense controls, Shama and Dama. Then in 135, he shows indifference, right? He says, Uparati. He says, I do not desire to kill them, even if I have sovereignty over the three worlds. Right? So he's completely indifferent to material gains. Then in the previous verse, he says that it is better to live by begging. Right? So this is titiksha. Titiksha is tolerance to the dualities of nature. So all these qualities that Arjuna is showing, Sham and Dama, control of mind and senses, Uparati, indifference to material enjoyment, Titiksha, tolerance, and then the fact that he's putting this in front of Krishna, Shraddha, his faith, they make him a suitable candidate to receive the knowledge of Bhagavad-gita. One who does not have this qualification for receiving knowledge will not be able to hear and understand the Bhagavad-gita. A person who is too vested in material enjoyment, a person who is too polarized from the material perspective, the person who is too much into the dualities of nature, of good and bad, and a person who has no faith in the words of Guru and scriptures, even though such a person might read the Bhagavad-gita or hear the Bhagavad-gita, the person will not be able to understand the Bhagavad-gita. Prabhupada says it is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chances of elevation to the platform of knowledge, and without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. So, from the next verse, we will see the beginning of the surrender of Arjuna to Krishna.